I'm joined by Alex Vetter, CEO of Cars Commerce. With tariffs, EV credits, and affordability reshaping buyer behavior, dealers are being forced to pivot fast. As the head of one of the nation's largest automotive marketplaces, Alex shares insider strategies on how top operators are staying one step ahead and turning market volatility into a competitive edge. A big thank you to our sponsors for making today's episode possible: CarNow, Mia, and of course, Cars Commerce. And now let's get into the show. Alex Vetter back on the C2G podcast. Alex, welcome back.
It's great to see you, Yossi.
Great to see you as well. How you hanging in there? What's new?
It's been a busy summer, that's for sure. Lots happening across the industry, certainly at Cars Commerce, and exciting to take a break and a breath here with you today.
Alex, I want to start with, you recently put on an event that I saw. Used Car Palooza. So I love the name. A+ to the marketing team on that one. That's
Chicago.
I know it's definitely up our alley. But can you tell us a little bit about that? I was intrigued because I saw a bunch of former C2G podcast guests at this event, and obviously prominent dealers. So would love to know, before we get into the industry, like what this event is about, what you accomplished there. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, listen, this is our fourth year hosting this event of some of the top retail operators across the country. And for us, we want to use our platform to connect dealers and let them share best practices and talk amongst themselves. And certainly selfishly from our end, we want to get their feedback on what's working, what's not, where they need our innovation, what we're doing on a product pipeline standpoint. And so we derive a lot of great feedback from our retail partners as well. And this was our most heavily attended event. We had dealers from California to New York to Texas descend on Chicago for the better part of 2 days. And we got a lot of great feedback and insights as to what's working at the ground level.
Okay, so used cars right now, the hottest thing again, right? We know that. And so the timing is great, clearly here. What can you give us a little, just distill some of the insights? This was, was it a 1 day, 2 day event? I mean, this was a long thing, but can you give us, like, if you had to distill that into a couple insights on the current state of used cars, what top operators are seeing or doing, what would you say?
Well, look, we covered a lot of ground, and I think I'll start with the consumer, right? First and foremost, I mean, sentiment is still strong throughout the year, and we had a pretty surreal start to 2025. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of swirl, but it's clear that dealers who stuck with their knitting and kept in the game and kept active in marketing are taking disproportionate share. We're seeing this on our marketplace. So on cars.com, consumer traffic continues to surge. We're setting record levels of engagement in 2025. And we are seeing a lot of same persistent volume on dealer retail websites. As you know, we've got, over 9,000 dealer websites. We're seeing consumers shopping aggressively. Conversion is harder, though. We heard from dealerships they're having a harder time to convert people to sales on their websites across all sources. And so it's clear the consumer is doing more of that research online and more skeptical about where do they ultimately convert.
So what does that tell you, right? So why are consumers more skeptical about where they convert? Is it just more options in the market? What's driving that?
Well, look, I think it's a little bit, seeing what I've seen in prior cycles, a little bit of that is the summer softness, right? Where people are not fully engaged in return to school and things aren't running again. So you get a summer lull that you get in every summer period. But I do think the tariff noise has given consumers a lot more to research and explore prior to purchase. And so, not surprisingly, marketplaces like ours are surging in traffic because consumers are looking for more information prior to purchase.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about used car acquisition? Everyone is looking for the next best car. It's the hardest thing to get in today's market. What were some of the discussions around that and getting the right inventory?
That perhaps is the most durable theme, I think, from 2025, not just our weekend here or our week here last week. I think, first of all, the tariff implications on parts and service are significant. And so consumers are getting a little bit of shell shock in terms of what it's going to cost their cars to be repaired. And so that's helping facilitate more volume on interest in new vehicles. But dealers overwhelmingly, Yossi, are realizing that they source inventory directly from consumers, both private sellers, but more pronounced in their service lane. They're able to bypass traditional auctions and source and stock, high demand used cars while creating demand from their existing customer base. And so that probably took up multiple hours of operators' time talking about what are the best dealers doing to source cars directly from their own customers.
Mm-hmm. And what are they doing, right? We've spoken a lot about sourcing from customers, sourcing from the service drive. It's a common theme that the best operators have adopted, and frankly, if those that haven't are behind. I mean, I don't know how else you can survive in an environment where you're strictly relying on auctions or even trades, let alone as a used car dealer. That's totally just very, very difficult. What's the latest and greatest when it comes to sourcing from customers? And you're actively working on this, right? Where are we at today?
Absolutely. I mean, the top dealers said basically two things are key to their success: speed and transparency, right? How do they appraise every car that comes into their showroom, whether it's while they're shopping for another car or in the service lane? And how can they reduce appraisal time down to mere minutes and show total transparency about not only what the car looks like intrinsically in terms of the health of the vehicle, but also what is retail demand and what do third-party services like Cars.com say the car is worth. And by doing that, dealers are able to reduce the tension at the point of sale, because no longer is the dealer giving their number, but they're using data to show the customer this is what the market says your car is worth, and that is acting as an elixir to vehicle acquisition.
I got to ask you something on a more personal side. Has there been something that surprised you as you've been on this, really used car acquisition crusade, right? You've really been spending a lot of time and effort educating the industry on this way of, acquiring more used cars. But has there been something about dealer adoption or dealer education here that you'd say is not what you expected initially, or a surprising insight?
Well, I'm more surprised to the delight. I'm seeing more and more retailers wanting to lead with data first. They're being aggressive in terms of being transparent to their customers, and they're positioning themselves as being trustworthy by using information and data and opening it up to the customer. It used to be that people looked at vehicle history reports, which is sort of a backwards looking view of like, has this car ever been in an accident? And we're trying to shift the industry towards vehicle health reports, saying here's what we need to do to repair this car to make it retail ready, or what service and repair estimates you're going to have coming up, and that now is a better time to trade in the vehicle. I've been very pleased with the amount of dealers that are leading with technology, building more transparent operations. And in some cases, we had dealers share with us that now they're going to customers' homes to provide the trade-in and appraisal process in the driveway. And so just very impressed with dealers leaning into technology and being different in the way they operate has been rewarding to see.
So shifting gears back to the event you just had, what else did you discuss there? I mean, other than state of used cars, acquisition, disposition, was there any macro talk? I know this is something that is clearly less in dealers' control, but tariffs on, tariffs off, EV tax credits going away, clearly impacting lots of used car dealers. I just had Joel Bossum from Eastern Motors on the podcast, and I asked him, what's the state of your used car or your used EVs in inventory? He said, we're still, we're still stocking them. We're about 60 days out, so we still have time to sell. So he hasn't seen much yet in terms of change in demand, but it is coming. It is approaching quick. So curious to know what sentiment was when it came to macro impacts on the dealership.
We spent a little time talking about consumer trends and how still consumers are wanting an omni-channel experience where they do more online, but they still want the romance of a physical partner to help them trade and buy their next car. But what I actually will tell you, Yossi, what I loved about this group is they don't let macro trends dictate their strategies. They are hands-on operators that are focused on what they can control, and they're leading with creating a better customer experience. And there's always going to be macro changes to this market. This is a very dynamic industry. And I'll just say candidly, the 70 or so operators we had here were kind of like, yeah, we know there's always going to be something, but what can we control and what can we do differently with the tools and information that we have today? And that's the strength of this retail system, is that they don't let macro forces drive their thinking or their strategies. They just continue to execute.
This episode is brought to you by CarNow. Your website gets traffic, but are those visitors turning into buyers? CarNow's digital retail turns browsers into buyers by letting shoppers start their deal online with real payments and trade values. And the results? One dealer jumped from a 3% close rate to 30% in just 1 month. If you want to see what's possible, visit carnow.com/performance. That's CARNOW.com/performance, or click the link in the show notes below. So when you hear this from your vantage point, public company CEO, of course you can't give us all your secret plans, but maybe just a little bit. What do you think you've looking backwards, in this past year you acquired DealerClub, a dealer to dealer marketplace, so you're clearly leaning in to more transactions between dealers. What themes interest you, right, when it comes to making the dealership more efficient, making it more profitable, offering a better customer experience? What are you leaning into as a brand at Cars Commerce?
Well, obviously, nothing's more top of mind right now than AI and helping dealers leverage tools to improve their operations. Whether it's AccuTrade being able to give an appraisal of a car in minutes, that's very detailed and accurate with a complete condition report, or using AI to forecast future demand on vehicles so dealers know what to stock and what they should look to wholesale off because there's low retail demand. We heard it from a lot of dealerships using AI to automate their BDCs. We see at Cars.com, sometimes dealers will report a high percentage of their leads going unanswered, and they're using AI now to make sure that they get 100% of their customer inquiries addressed within minutes. We had a dealer share with us that by using AI in their BDC, they went from setting 8% of their Cars.com leads into appointments to 20+%. And so savvy dealers are leaning into technology to make sure the customer experience is first class, but they also are realizing that they have to manage that. They can't just outsource it to AI. They've got to actually pay attention, watch the conversations that are being had with their customers, and know when to engage to provide that higher level human touch.
So when you were saying BDC, I think back to the conversations I've had with, the rep I worked with at any listing site in general, where we discussed, hey, why are these leads not converting, or why are these converting much better? And a lot of the conversation always came down to, like you said, lead follow-up. This is, every dealer can attest to this, right? This is a common conversation you have, at least from my experience. I'm curious to know if this is something where you mentioned BDC follow-up. Is this something that do you see a world where that gets integrated into a platform like Cars.com, right? Where lead follow-up and stuff like this is more automated from the actual platform, which of course can, increase dealer conversion. Is that something that's already being worked on, or it's like a partnership style? How do you think about that?
Yeah, we're looking at a number of different ways. Predominantly one of the number one ways that we connect consumers from our marketplace to dealerships is through telephones and getting people to actually pick up the phone and call dealerships directly and talk to them. We're also the leading driver of traffic to dealer websites. I think that also is something that we're looking hard at, that data of watching consumers shop on our marketplace, but then travel to the retail dealer website and convert on the dealership's website. And dealership CRMs are not capturing this migration path from pre-tail research to retail shopping behavior. And so AI can help illustrate that. One of the big releases that we've done this summer is appending all the consumer search history to our leads that we're sending to dealerships, so that a dealership can click on the comments in their CRM and expand and see what the customer's history has been on Cars.com. How many other cars have they looked at? Have they contacted other dealerships? And so by giving dealers this information, they know more about the shopping journey. And so, those are just a few of the things. I think the other thing that we're seeing happen in real time is how much reputation matters, Yossi. Consumers are sourcing a lot more information online, researching the store, contacting other dealerships, and they're collecting information on what they can expect prior to visiting the dealership. And so what we saw in talking to our dealer panelists and participants is they're focused much more on building their reputations online, making sure that they've got constant reviews flowing into the search infrastructure that's indexing those reviews, be that on cars.com or on Google. And building your authority online is what we're seeing the leading dealers do. They're creating their own content in social media. They're building their brands online. And by doing that, they're earning more traffic than dealerships perhaps that are just relying on third-party marketplaces or just relying on their website. They're actually producing content that drives commerce.
And when you say building authority, does that directly impact where my visibility on a platform like yours, like cars.com, or like my review count, or how does that really work?
Well, look, one of the biggest signals to SEO historically has been authority ranking. How many different platforms point to this retailer as being trustworthy or voluminous or being an authority in their market? And so dealerships need to syndicate their content, make sure their inventory is available in as many destinations as possible. And then also their reputations are being amplified online because the bots are looking at who are the dealerships that have the most appearance and footprint digitally. And so now's the time not to try to drive everybody through one funnel, but to really expand your retail footprint online and make sure that your brand and your business is visible in many destinations, so that increases the volume of bots that are seeing you appear in multiple destinations. That syndication of your brand is what lifts content and traffic.
Alex, I've heard you mention the term content to commerce several times. Can you explain what that means to you? I'm clearly a huge believer in internet content, as you can tell, but I want to understand what this means for dealers and to you.
Well, I think this industry is obsessed with paid advertising. And increasingly, if you look at the consumer and what they're looking for authentic content and brands that they can trust. And smart brands are realizing that they need to tap into these trust brokers. I know a lot's been covered on this channel, Yossi, with like Amazon and what they're doing with Hyundai. Tip of the hat to our friends at Hyundai, who were also thrilled are leaning into us. You know, we took our editorial team, which is unrivaled in this industry, and we critically assessed all of Hyundai's new product lineup. And what you'll see on cars.com starting today and running forward is Hyundai leaning into the power of cars.com's editorial authority. And so we actually brought in actual car shoppers. We had them drive cars on our test track and recorded real feedback about what they liked about the cars and what's best about the new products that they're bringing to market. And it's a great example of by working with us to generate high quality content that drives engagement and ultimately will drive people into the showroom to see the cars live.
Got it. I'm looking at this now. So basically, you're doing it's a collaboration here, but you're essentially creating. Is this content meant for social media? Like, how is this going to be consumed? How do you do that?
Absolutely. But as you know, consumers are coming to cars.com in droves. I'm certain you saw the recent Clarivoy study that said 93% of all car buyers go to third-party marketplaces. And I know that most agencies and even a lot of dealers out there want to wean themselves off third-party marketplaces. But the reality is, this is very durable where consumers shop. We've been at this for 25 years. Research is so critical prior to purchase that the industry needs to lean into how do we then represent people and represent ourselves as brands and products on marketplaces where consumers shop. And I think Hyundai's doing a great job of saying, let's not fight the marketplace trend. Let's lean into it and get people to spend more time exploring our products, our dealers on the cars.com platform. And certainly we think this is a great strategy for other brands to lean into. It's really about being present in retail forums where people shop.
This episode is brought to you by Mia. Dealers, who's your best BDC rep? You know the one. They answer every call with professionalism and know your inventory inside and out. Now imagine if they never took a day off and were even answering calls all night long. That's what it's like working with Mia. Mia picks up every call with a friendly attitude to help customers shop for cars, book service appointments, and answer any questions. She even speaks multiple languages. You might have guessed it, but Mia is not a human. She's the latest in AI call center technology, and she's here to transform your business. Mia seamlessly integrates with your CRM, DMS, and inventory system to give you the best data possible. You can check out Mia at mia.inc, that's MIA.inc, or click the link in the show notes below. I think you said something interesting there, which is it's at this point, it's trust at scale, right? With the power of the platforms here and your ability to build an audience that trusts you, it's incredible what we've seen, especially on my end as well, with how dealers have really are just generating business from that. And I think it's very smart that you're leaning into it because, like you said, only relying on paid doesn't make sense in today's world where the algorithms are pushing organic content so well, and some of the best dealers are leveraging that to their advantage.
Well, thank you for that. And look, we've seen this play out over decades where that the more information that you can publish about your business, your inventory, and again, syndicate that content out, the more inbound referring traffic and signals are pointing back to your store. And progressive dealers are realizing this, that I need to have my inventory in all these retail marketplaces because that's ultimately where consumers are shop. If I can get them from those marketplaces into my dealer website, home run, even better, let me get them into my physical store. And I like to think that Cars.com has always been a partner to drive traffic to retail locations. Yes, we'd love it, them to send a lead, but like the more we can get people physically to dealer stores, we know the dealers know how to put them in the cars.
Okay, so going back to, we discussed used cars, trades. When it comes to simplifying trade process, appraisals, the acquisition of DealerClub was a little bit over 6 months ago at this point. What else should we know from your end, right? What else, how's that progress been and what are you focused on?
Well, look, I think the integration's gone fantastic. Joe Neiman and his team have built an incredible platform that allows dealerships to leverage their trusted reputations to facilitate transactions dealer to dealer. If you think about Cars.com, we've always weighted trust and reputation above lowest cost. We'd rather promote a certified pre-owned dealership that's standing by a factory warranty on a car than another dealer who's just lowered the price and are using deceptive practices to get people to contact them. We've always rewarded dealerships that are transparent and leading forward with reputation. Enter DealerClub. It's the same play, which is dealerships want to know who they can trust online to trade their vehicles with dealers in other geographies. And using DealerClub, not only are we giving dealers tools such as we're preloading their inventory from Cars.com into DealerClub, so Yossi dealers can see which cars not only have the longest time on lot, but also have the lowest retail propensity to sell. And with one-click access, they can launch those cars into a transparent dealer-to-dealer wholesale exchange. And unlike some of the traditional auctions, we'll pay dealers to sell on DealerClub. So we're changing the game, giving power and using technology to power back to the local dealer community, letting them be the exchange amongst themselves. And let's just let technology facilitate that as opposed to what some of the traditional auctions do, or all the traditional auctions do, which are charge exorbitant fees.
When I first heard about the pay to sell, I chuckle at that because that was traditionally a very under the table type of thing at any auction, right? I mean, we've bought at all the auctions, and anyone that's done any level of meaningful volume knows that that's an under the table thing. It just is. You negotiate deals as your volume rises. And so to see it be like front and center and again, lean into it, that's, I thought that was a smart move because everyone's doing it anyways. So why not just own it and market it and be open about it? So I think that's great. Alex, before we wrap up, there was another point here that I want to touch on, which is one of the lines I've heard you say during the research. You use this term like race to the top, which is sort of the opposite of what you typically hear when you think about online search, listings, listing sites, race to the bottom. What does that really mean? Like, just give us a little background into that phrase, how you're building products to actually deliver that. What does that mean to you?
Well, look, I think this industry has pitted dealers against each other for volume for decades, whether it is traditional auctions forcing dealers to compete for volume and then driving the cost of acquisition up, or other marketplaces that charge for premium placement at the top and let dealers fight by lowering their price of their cars, for the cheapest deals or the cheapest badges on great deal. Our model is different. We want dealers to help build their brands online, stand out more digitally, and promote themselves as destinations for customers when they shop. We know that a big part of this process is happening online, but we also know the last mile is a physical one. And if we can get customers into the dealership's physical showrooms, they always delight the customer at the point of sale. I think, if you look at our Dealer Inspire business, building websites for dealerships, you can see clearly that Cars.com is focused on driving traffic to dealers' storefronts. No third-party marketplace drives more traffic to dealer websites than Cars.com. And what we see in the data is that traffic converts at 2 to 3 times the rate of all the other traffic sources combined. And so dealers that work with us appreciate the fact that we're promoting them as a dealership. We're promoting their identities online and giving that just as much coverage as the vehicles themselves. The industry loves to say, see, the car's the star. In our platform, we also like to say the dealer is the hero. Get them to the physical store and let the dealership delight the customer.
Well said. Alex, before we wrap up, extremely difficult question I have to ask you. What's most exciting to you right now?
Well, I think the transparency that we're bringing to dealer information. For all the Dealer Inspire dealers out there, please contact us about your website health report. Dealers on average have got over 40 vendors hanging on their website. The part that I think is concerning is we don't know what they're doing with your data. Dealers have got to lock down their data, and they can be assured with Cars Commerce we're doing everything we can to protect their information. There's a lot of tech companies out there reselling audiences. The question needs to be asked, where are they getting that audience data? We believe they're riding on dealer website traffic data and reselling it as their own. We think dealerships should lock down their websites, making sure they're fortified or protected and not letting that information out. And we're now publishing reports for dealerships so that they can see exactly who's running tags on their website so they can hold their vendors accountable to make sure that their information is being protected and never being remarketed to. Dealers are spending a lot of money promoting their websites, and that's their IP and their property, and they shouldn't let third-party vendors retarget that information for their own selfish gain. So that's exciting. We certainly love what we're seeing across the industry in terms of digital first, dealerships investing more, not only in their digital experience, but in the way that they're using technology. And we're just thrilled to see dealerships continue to reach out to us and work with them on all things tech.
Well said. Alex Vetter, Cars Commerce, thanks for coming on again, man. It's great to hear you.
Thank you.
Great to hear some updates, and
keep up the great work. You're doing a great job getting information out to our industry. We appreciate you.
Thank you, and and thanks for the feedback. We're always looking to improve and continue growing the platform. So appreciate you coming on. All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.